Well, hello, everybody. Hello, everybody out there. And let me give profuse apologies for messing this right on up. I am Nikki Davenport, and I'm supposed to be your host today for a lovely conversation with the one and only Tracee Garner. Uh, but I could not get my tech together, and I'm going to go cry in my champagne later. But we're going to roll with it. It's like live theater. You never know what's going to happen. You're a consummate professional. You just push on. You cry later. Okay, so I'm your host, Nikki Davenport. I'm the author of Steamy Contemporary Romance Destination Lied to Us series. And with me today, as my special guest, is as I said, the one and only Tracee Lydia Garner. And with 20 books, 105,000 copies of her 20 books have been sold. And I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Tracee in a session she taught at the Virtual Romance Mastery Summit a few months back. I can't even remember when that was. I think it was over the
Was
summer. I can't
either
even remember.
March or there was like a June or July.
Somewhere around there. And I was seeking to learn everything I could in preparation for the debut of my own contemporary romance, International Incident, which launched 2 weeks ago today. And I was a nervous wreck when I
Congratulations.
reached out. Thank you. And I'm thinking to myself, this fabulous author is not going to want to write me back. But, good for you for making the effort. Good for you. And then to my utter surprise, she did. And I was just blown away by Tracee's enthusiasm and support. And she graciously agreed to answer questions to support my launch activities. So let me introduce the fabulous Miss Gardner. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous.
Don't be
Okay.
nervous. It's all okay.
So Tracee Lydia Garner is not only the award winning author of the best selling romantic suspense Jameson and Parker family series, but she's also a speaker, writing coach, and course creator. She was born and raised in the DC area. She holds a degree in communications from Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia, which is also my alma mater. And before Tracee ever entertained the idea of writing full length novels, she was a poet contributor to her alma mater's literary magazine. She tremendously enjoys the written and spoken word. Tracee's published her award winning first novella, Family Affairs, at the young age of 23. And this book helped launch her career as one of the youngest African American writers. Tracee is a staunch advocate and strong voice for people with disabilities. She was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy at an early age, and Tracee attributes her success to her deep faith in God, her supportive parents, and her personal desire and determination to do her best despite any circumstances. She's very active in her local community, which includes encouraging and supporting new authors like myself. So, welcome, Tracee. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging on while I tried my best to get through all of that.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Nikki, and congratulations on your new book. I'm so excited. I'm in the midst of reading it right now, and I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, wow, that's great to hear. Thank you. And I have some questions that I've just compiled. And if you would just share with us your wisdom, and you might be inspiring other new authors out there. And I appreciate you taking the time. So I wanted to find out, first of all, what is your creative process like?
That's a good question. My creative process really hasn't changed all that much. I am a pantser, and I really just try to write as much as I can as a pantser. For those who don't know, people that write fly by the seat of their pants, and plotters spend a lot of time, good time, quality time, really figuring out which direction they're going to take. So I don't do any of that. I just start writing. I signed up for Nano this year, and my process is that I usually hear people's emotion from my characters. So I hear what their longings are, what they're thinking about, and also listening or eavesdropping, I guess, to other people's conversations. And which a lot of times they're not that interesting, but they are funny. And so I think that I write as much as I can, usually 200 or so pages. And I put a lot of placeholders. If I can't describe something right away, I'll make it bold, I'll make it a different color, and I will usually highlight it so it stands out, like describe hotel here means I have to go do some research, go look at some pictures and stuff like that. So my creative process is really just listening to different things, hearing my character and what they want most out of the time that we're going to spend together, which is usually maybe, a year we're going to spend together, but not all that time is writing, of course. But what are their deep yearnings and longings, more than just goals and motivation and conflict? Like, what do they really want, and how are they going to get there by the end of the book, which is usually a condensed time around 3 to 6 months or so. So I just keep writing as much as I can, and then when I feel like I've just put everything out there that I possibly can, almost to a point of emptiness, then I'll go and read some more, start the research, and begin to fill in the plot holes and stuff like that.
Now, did you said that you're doing NaNoWriMo, and for anyone who doesn't know, that is National Novel Writing Month for November, which I discovered just a couple of years ago myself. And you set out to write 50,000 words, if you are just going to go for it. And those of us who have maybe day jobs or other responsibilities and can't dedicate an entire month just to that, you can set more um, achievable goals. Like for myself, I'm deep into writing book two, and I saved the revisions for NaNoWriMo so that I could, and I set a modest goal of 15,000 words so that the first time I came to it, I completely overdid it. And I was just trying to pound out words, which is great. But
Mhm.
as a brand new writer, it was like I was burning fast and bright, and I was exhausted by the time we were finished. And I didn't get to 50,000 words. So
Mhm.
now I'm a little more seasoned, know a little bit better. And I tried very hard to plan writing time to where it fits into my regular life
Right.
and with family life and things. And that's something that I wanted to ask you about as well. With how do you balance your creative life with the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it is a balance, and I actually don't have children, and I'm not married. So that leaves a lot of time. Of course, I'm still busy, but I just don't have to run after and cater to other people. So at this season right now, not that this season can end, and that will be just fine with me. But I just don't have a lot of my time is my time, and I'm very fortunate, to do that. But I just try to write at all the little nooks and crannies. I think that people think that writing has to be this linear thing that just happens and you do it all at once. Like you take 4 hours and you just work and work. But you're writing even when you're making something, even when you're cleaning. If you are thinking about your story and thinking about how the characters do what they need to do, then that is also writing. So we need to kind of get out of traditional thoughts of writing time when you're washing dishes, you're folding clothes, you're driving. Just like we listen to podcasts and we listen to things, we can still multitask. We can chew bubble gum and walk at the same time. And so I find most of my writing comes in those pockets of time in between other life things. So, I use dictation a lot too. A lot of people don't use that or they haven't become really comfortable with it. People don't like the sound of their voice, but I find it has helped me, write at least 2,000 words in like anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And usually
Wow.
I'll do that, from when I'm going to sleep. I get in bed, I pull out my phone, and I'm able to just talk. The phone doesn't care that I'm horizontal, there's a pillow over my head. It doesn't really have it's not a stickler. So it's a wonderful addition. I wrote a whole scene while I was just waiting for the doctor. I was early. I sat in my car. I could have just pulled out my phone and scrolled, but I tried to really focus and I could dictate something that's recorded. And you don't need dictation. You software. You don't need Dragon, which costs a lot of money. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Dragon, but I'm just saying that it's a high learning curve. I've
Yes.
been told by people to get it set up, to get it to recognize your voice. When good old Google and your iPhone, the Apple people already have done all of that technology as far as making things more accessible, especially for people with disabilities. And that's also something that I have is that just facing not fatigue in my fingers, not being able to write or type as long, then dictation has been a wonderful thing. And I've used it to really write so many words when I am away from my computer. You don't have to write at a set place, at a set time all the time. You can write anywhere.
I envy folks that are able to commit to that, where they do like a whole writing ritual and a routine. Maybe they do it the same time every day. And I'm with you with the pockets of time come up when they come up. One thing that I have found is a little bit troublesome with dictation is that
Mhm.
what Google Voice or Google Notes thinks that I said is not actually what I said. And then I have to read it out loud a few times to see if I
Mhm.
can jog my memory with what it was. Um, but it's kind of funny. Yeah, so I've done
That
dictation in the car, all of that.
Yes, that also happens when you're falling asleep. So it's not just Google's fault, it's human error that you're just kind of drifting off and you have some mumbo jumbo at the end. And I try to wake up and always send it to myself because I'm using dictation in an email. I'm just sending emails to myself. And then in the morning, I will get up and I will cut and paste them. And not all the time, I just leave them in there sometimes till I get to them. So I'm sending the email to myself and I'm getting up and copying and pasting that email into the master Word document. I don't, for some reason, I don't like moving my main document around too much. It won't be very portable for me. That's just one of my peeves. It just stays in that location, and everything else that I write is in the email, in a text, and stuff like that. So there is sometimes that gibberish of, oh, I must have been falling asleep. I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm talking in some kind of dream state. But I do try to just do it until you feel sleepy and then, go ahead and end it so you don't have that time where and also autocorrect and all kinds of things are always those little problems. And I find some curse words and I'm like, wow, I know I didn't say that, but interesting. So you never know what the technology is going to come up with, but if you have enough of it, you'll see and you should be able to make sense of it.
I see. And so you said you will do it, you'll dictate into an email? Is this Gmail
Mhm.
that you're okay, see, you may
Yeah,
have
it's
just
just
changed the
slash
game for me.
email. It's just AOL. I'm like one of few people over 40 who's still using AOL, but um, I am using AOL still. I've had that address since I was 16. So I open an email. It's from me. It's to me, and then I just use my microphone, and just start talking. And in the body of the email is all the work, is all the things that I've kind of said, and I just send it to myself. So yeah,
Okay,
but you
so I'm
can't
gonna
use
start
Google.
trying that.
Yeah, you can use Gmail. The only thing I would say that I guess you might need to do is, oh, the one thing that's good about the emails that it has a timestamp. So if you send yourself like 5 emails, you'll be able to put them in some kind of sequence
Oh,
based on
yes.
the timestamp. So that's always a good thing too.
Okay, that is a great idea. Now, I'm a pantser as well, and I have tried it the other way with doing comprehensive outlines. And for me, that didn't work. I know some diehard uh, plotters who just can't even imagine just writing a scene and trying to describe to someone, having characters talk to you, or like you said, you're feeling what are their deep emotions, what is really driving them. And that's something that I feel like I can't do ahead of time. That it sometimes I'm in it, I'm writing, and then the characters take me on a ride someplace I did not expect to go. And then it's like, okay, well, we're gonna go with this and we'll figure it out in editing. So
Yeah,
um yes, I know that some folks who might be planners they just can't even imagine what that is like. And in the rest of my life, I'm very organized. I love to plan. That doesn't mean
mhm.
things go according to plan, but I do love to plan.
I do too. I love planning. I love planning events. I really hope one day to write a book on event planning because I'm always having an event. I'm always planning something like my family reunion. I'm like secretly a Martha Stewart wannabe, but I always just like inviting people together over food, conversation, good music, and just a good time. A lot of different personalities, and I always like getting people together and planning my book launch parties. I had a book launch party, a big one in 2015 before the pandemic, and that was so fun. So I love definitely very organized and definitely a planner type. What I will say is that no matter what you are, whether you're a pantser or a plotter, or the hybrid is plantser, you should still read things for written to that other group that you are not. So even though I'm a pantser, I still read books about plotting because there is an efficiency in plotting. In when you pants, there's this kind of round robin error wheel that you can get stuck on, and that prohibits you from finishing your book. But so I still read things, and I plotted one book just to see if I could do it, just to see how it went. And I did get very, very far, probably almost the whole book done. And then I fizzled out. And that book is still 10 years old and I have not finished it. So, I definitely recommend people try other ways of doing things, but also read about, ways of doing things that you don't you don't want to do or you don't like to do, because there are still things that we can learn from each other to make us more efficient in our writing time. Nobody likes to waste time. So if you can do things, and sometimes pantsing is a little bit of extra work to clean it up. Whereas if you plot it, you kind of got it all figured out. But for me personally, there is no wrong or right way. There's only your way, and we're all taking a little bit from everybody to make up our own way. It's all modeled after somebody, just lots of different people at a time.
That's very true. And now I'm going to take that piece of advice as well and see if I can find. Well, I belong to the fictionary community online, and they are always offering different educational events or a series of learning events. Like they had a like 6 weeks to edit your novel, and we would work on
Mhm.
things sort of together. And when the 6 weeks to outline came up, I was like, "Psh, I'm not taking that one. I know I'm not going to enjoy that one." But now you have me rethinking it to say, well, maybe you might, and you might get some good things out of there. So
You
you've
never know.
changed
You
my
never know.
mind.
Yes. Good. That's good. Just try it. You don't have to go back. You don't have to tell anybody you didn't
Okay.
like it. You can just go there and just see. And there's always a nugget, even if it's just one. When I go to workshops and, my mom's like, oh, I need to go to that. You should be teaching it. You already know all that stuff. And I'm like, I just go. I know I'm going to moan and groan about it when I'm done. Like, what are they talking about? I already know that stuff. But, and she's right. But my point is that you can always find a couple nuggets that you didn't know in almost everything. At the beginner level, the mid level, 20 books, 50 books, it really doesn't matter. There are still nuggets to be had to learn.
So, in that vein, you just brought up a good point about like continuing your education and not just teaching courses and webinars, because I actually saw you in two successive uh, uh, summits, and I was like, okay.
Mhm.
So I got very excited. And what you taught in the second one was very different from what you had spoken about in the first one. And it sounds like that's the right path to continue to get to try and know more about either the craft or the genre, reading in your genre. Like you said, that even when you're washing dishes or you're doing other things, you're still writing. I consider myself still writing when I'm reading
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
you're studying the
Right.
craft.
Mhm.
So, can I ask you, what have been some of your influences with other authors that are out there?
Yeah, sure. I love so many authors. I don't want to name anybody, I'll omit them, but of course there's a classic like the Brenda Jacksons of the world, and Sandra Kitt was somebody that I discovered early on as a early 20 something when I really got into romance. Debbie McComber, like these are the legend people. Donna Hill, those are the legends. Now I read all of them, and like Connie Briscoe, who is a fellow person with a disability. She's deaf. And I just never, Big Girls Don't Cry was like one of my favorite books from her long ago. And she's just soon came back into the writing space. And I just loved her books. But I also love Irene Hannon. Beverly Jenkins. I don't read a lot of historical, but Vanessa Riley, I have read some of her historicals too. So I really read Trevion Burns, who actually writes kind of borderline erotica, which is like, ooh. So I read a really just a wide range of people, but mostly from what I read, I write romantic suspense, contemporary, even sweet and inspirational and stuff like that. So all of them have just influenced my career, but there are definitely some early pioneers that I mentioned that really
Sure.
opened up this whole Black romance thing.
For sure. Um, and that leads me to my next question that the landscape of romance by and for people of color is drastically different than what it was when you first started out. And wanted to ask, what's it been like to not just witness this change, but to be a part of it?
It's been great. I mean, a rising tide raises all boats, right? It just lifts all the rest of us up. The only thing I would say that I don't like about it is that I just sometimes feel like, as far as being inclusive, I think that even people of my own genre, of my own race, sometimes aren't as inclusive as they could be. I think inclusivity means different things to some people. And I think we also sometimes miss when we are excluding other groups, and so sometimes I feel that I may be on one side or the other, and I already know as I shouldn't make excuses for being to one side. I know that they may have been more welcoming. So it's easy to go to that side and be with them and be always teaching to those groups because they rolled out the welcome mat. I don't have to work so hard to be impressed by them. And I would just say, sometimes you have to work really hard to impress your own people. And that kind of sucks. But that has been my experience that sometimes, no matter what you do, you know, um, it's just not enough. And so I still think there are little silos and little cliques, things, and that's disheartening. And I don't think that people, especially the more marginalized people, sometimes see when they are being more marginalizing, right? So that's been the only thing. I think that we're all growing, we're all helping each other by being out there, but I just think that there's still some set apart, even in the circle that was set apart, further division sometimes in
Right.
that, in recognizing other groups, inviting them along, letting them be on your platform, saying, here, come up to the stage too. Or, you go to some event and like these tables are only for the four that are like the top selling. And then all the
Uh,
rest of y'all kind of get over here and, be on that side. So I've experienced that sometimes too at some conferences and events and stuff.
oh, well, I'm hoping that will continue to change because this is not even a conversation we were having
Mhm.
20 years ago when you got
Right.
started. And speaking to the marginalized communities, for folks who may not be creatives like us, may have never heard of the term sensitivity reader.
Mhm.
And what a sensitivity reader can bring to your work is authenticity. And we know that not we're not a monolith, nobody is. One person can't speak for everybody, but taking the time to reach out to someone who is in a member of the community that has been marginalized to make sure you're representing their voice authentically. Uh,
Mhm.
I've found to be very helpful. Do you use sensitivity readers?
I don't sometimes. I read a lot of stuff and I have some DEIA training. So I'm always like seeing what that is. But as I'm writing about other characters with disabilities, the one thing I am aware of is just remembering the different experiences. Sometimes I think when people write about, let's say, people with disabilities, as I am, they kind of get just one group or one, let's say one person has like spinal cord injury, and that's what they're going to write about. Then they forget about people who were born with their disability. This is just an example. And then they kind of mismatch the different experiences, which can work. It can be fine, but it's like as you're a person with a disability, reading like, wow, that kind of wouldn't work that way if they'd have been injured
You
later
could
in life.
spot it.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that I kind of stay on that side of if I'm going to write about something, I want to know this. But there's so many experiences that I've given my characters I have no idea about. That's where research, talking to other people is really important to me, and really seeing people in their day-to-day environment. And then also YouTube. YouTube is such a great place. I consume so much content. I still watch videos about, other people's disabilities, even though I live it every day. I want to see how they do stuff, how they adapt, and whatever they're going through. Aging and disability is a big thing. I'm loathing
Mm.
that at this time in my life, but you look for other people, you look for peers, and I also have a far off approach. I've always sometimes asked for mentors and haven't been able to get them. So I have a far off mentor type thing where I'm studying what they're doing, seeing what they're doing, even though they're not my personal mentor, I can still take cues and still follow them in a hands-off stalker kind of way to see what's going on and try to just depict that in my own stories.
Understood. Um, Another question that comes to mind is, what would you like to see more of in the romance genre?
I'd like to see more of our stories brought to the forefront. There was a young woman, her name is Allie, I forgot her last name, but she's a Tony Award winning um, actress. And I think she was in Oklahoma. She did one of the first movies featuring a character who uses a wheelchair in a
Mm.
romance that was on Lifetime. I forget the name of it. I want to say it's Happily Christmas After or Happily something Christmas because it went during Christmas. And they did so well with that movie and with dodging, stereotypes and further perpetuating, things that are offensive or things that, kind of miss the mark. It was really, really well done, but we haven't had a much of any kind of lead Black character or lead Asian, lead, Pacific Islander, all of that. We haven't had those same lead characters with whether wheelchair user or blind or what have you, um, in those roles, strictly romance roles. We've had, there's a deaf woman who's very popular. I'm drawing a blank on her name, but she's been in a movie. It was like a thriller. Somebody was stalking her, and because she was deaf, she couldn't hear them approaching her, coming into her house, and stuff like that. So that was great. But it's not. There's still that not romantic love had for and by people with disabilities on the big screen or even the small screen.
Mm, that's interesting. And think about being the character that's part of a multiculti cast is different than having the story center around someone who has a disability instead of just having them as part of the I don't want to say background, but part of the non-main cast is I guess what I would say.
Right. Right.
Um, that something that I was talking about in an interview last week was how
Hmm.
different two movies are. Like The Avengers is an example of one movie, same universe, and you look at Black Panther, and the difference is of being one of a diverse group, and then also being where the diversity is the group are two totally different experiences. And that's what I
Hmm.
tried to create in my own with the fictitious island that I created. And my conceit as an author is that everybody in my book is Black.
Hmm.
And I got a little pushback actually about that from someone who is not a member of our community, saying that um, I should have done a better job describing that these folks were not Black. And I said, that's actually your issue with what you see, not
Right.
mine.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to stand firm in that. And as we're seeing more and more uh, diverse authors and diverse voices get elevated through self-publishing, uh, I feel like I'm better equipped with that, with sort of, okay, not your thing, you just move on. Just
Hmm.
I am not I am not your the author that you're going to flock to then. Uh, so
And that's
why
okay.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's okay. It's your book. Let us have whatever we want in our own thing, right? In our own world that we're going to write, this is our heart, these are the stories we want to tell, and everybody is what they are, then let us have that. I mean, there's so many instances where we have to get told and we have to permit others to join us for this and that. Writing can be, the one place you can do whatever you want, and you should be free to do that. Even if
Yes.
it's terrible, even if it's like what I was going to say is like, even if it's not even if it's like bad, like if somebody chooses to write something that further does something, marginalizes other groups, I still advocate that that's their choice. However wrong it is, however terrible it is, I still think that's what they want to do. They'll see that people won't buy that per se, but there is a group that is going to buy it, and so fine, cater to that. But I mean, if people want to live in a free society, why do we always judging people, about what they choose to do? You want to say you want to be free, you don't want to wear a mask. Okay, don't. But don't judge others because that's what they want to do. And so it's just a very catch-22. It's very odd that you are promoting people doing not you, but I mean people in general promoting choice and speech and everything, and then turn their noses when somebody makes a choice or tells a speech or a story. And so I just think there's something out there for everyone, So I think that that there should be one place that is just our own and what we ever we want to do when in a life we just don't have all the choices and we have to put up with a lot of different things
Great.
unnecessarily or just to make living, just to live, just to be peace among your neighbors. And so, and you're right, this is my book, okay? And this is what I'm going to do with it.
Okay. Then I feel better about that because my first reaction was sort of a ah, with why are you bothering me
Hmm.
about this piece of my work when so I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. And when they were babies and buying up all the books that we could get our hot little hands on, there was so much more representation than what I grew up with, where everybody, like, what rose tinged ivory skin looks like because that's all you ever read about. And I never cared for not seeing myself in those roles. And I started reading romances probably way too early, like a lot of folks who,
Oh, yeah,
who love
very
it, got started way
start
too early.
home.
Um, and I was never on the cover. I was never in the pages, or if I was in the pages, I was there as, sassy best friend, or there as a prop. And as
Yeah.
I got older and was starting to see it a little bit more as my horizons expanded, it was just world changing. When I was young and reading was not considered cool, so I was happily and proudly a nerd who loved to read, and it became like a source of contention within my neighborhood, within my peers, and when I went to Tennessee State University, an HBCU, I walked onto that campus. Everybody was just like me.
Hmm.
And it was just world changing to be like, you like to read too. We do exist. We are out here. We do
Right.
want to have deep love stories where um, maybe it's fantastical or maybe it's something that's improbable. Who cares? We want that same experience to be swept away when we read.
Hmm.
And that's part of what drew me to writing. But let's talk about you. Why romantic suspense? What drew you to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just always love things blowing up, somebody being chased, somebody almost dies, and this person wants to poison you. I mean, it's just always something happening all the time. And I just think, and not only that, now we're changing where the heroine can also be the rescuer and be
Yes.
really kick butt. I haven't done that much, but I have had a couple women, fight back and get out of their own situations that they find themselves in, and not just, the hero coming to rescue you. But I think I just like turning the page and something's happening. or ending the action right before you have to turn the page, and then you want to go to sleep and you're like, I can't put this down. So I think I just like I've always loved action anyway. Like I'm the John Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal type. Like I
Yes.
just love them so much. Like I love combat, but like with fists and like people get beat up. Of course now I use guns and knives and terrible and fire. But that's what the audience calls for. We can't just punch somebody's lights out anymore. It's gotta be elevated. So yeah, so I've always loved action. I've always loved that. I loved Harrison Ford and all his Hunt for Red October type of things ever since I was a child. So when things happen, I just like, yeah, get him, go, yeah. So that's always been fun to me. And so I just put those in my stories. And I just get a little bored. I get a little bored sometimes if all they have is the love and just a history or a past. No, somebody's got to be after them. I mean, it can't just be, they have to have done something to like, or not. People are just evil sometimes and they have vendettas and,
Yeah.
uncollected, debts that they want to exact revenge on people. So very I just love the added excitement, edge of your seat that suspense brings.
And it's changed so much in the last, I guess maybe the last decade or so, where we're seeing, I think, women really come into their own, where it's in many ways it's fallen out of favor to be the damsel in distress, that it's more like
Hmm.
damsel who saved themselves, and
Right.
expecting their man to take care of themselves.
Hmm.
And I'm here for it. I love seeing it, and that it can be done deftly in a way where uh, somebody's not feeling threatened because someone else is
Hmm.
strong, that the two can coexist, that you can be
Yeah.
strong and the other person can be strong too.
Hmm.
I was reading an author that I like, Anna Hackett, and she writes a lot of romantic suspense, and she's actually cross genres into a couple of other like fantasy things. And I sort of the same thing. Your love can't be the only thing that holds it together, although that's nice. And I feel like every plot could be improved by adding a romantic element.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm a big old sap. And I love seeing women come into their own, that are not waiting around for somebody else to, fix things for them, that
Right.
they can fix it themselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
Ah, so
And just because
we've
they
got
can doesn't mean they don't need a partner. Like just
right.
because you can do it, that doesn't mean I don't need love or I don't want to fall in love. It just means, hey, I can, I'm cool too. Like, and plus the thing is, while we say, well, that just makes people feel useless and unwanted, but it's like that is more about a security in yourself than it is
Right.
about you disapproving of someone, taking care of themselves or being able to fight or something to get themselves out of situation. Like, and then people are on the other extreme. Well, nobody wants a weak heroine, like too stupid to live or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like good, good on you if you do, even if you don't. So it just, to me, people can take these tropes and these genres to the extreme, as in putting them in real life. Well, all these stories about these women rescuing themselves had to say something about society, and it really doesn't. It can just be this is the escapism. I want to see myself overcome. I want to see myself handle a situation if I'm ever in one. It's just a fight back thing that does not mean that people don't still need relationships and love. You know, just
That's such a good point. Such a good
mhm.
point. And oh, I love when you have a romance that has strong friendships and strong family ties, and you feature that a lot in your work. And do you draw on personal experiences, or where's your inspiration for the strong women and the families and the friendships that you portray?
Yeah, I think that is from my family. Really, for me and my brother, it's only the two of us, but both my mom and dad. My mom had seven in her family. I think my dad had like I don't know, 10 or 12, maybe even 16 if there was a second marriage in there somewhere. But just such large families, all of us always coming together for family reunions, brothers, sisters, my aunt, they just that extended family is so wonderful to have and to grow up around. And also people really being there for each other. I think that people can't believe that, sometimes when I've gone in the hospital, people stay with me. Like they stay overnight, sleeping in a really uncomfortable chair, just to be with you and to make sure nothing happens, in that night. And that's like sacrifice. That's love and dedication. And I really want to talk about the Black family unit. Nobody, I don't write urban romance, even though some people have said that. But nobody's going to jail, nobody's a drug dealer. There are some bad, people, but those are the villains. And then the rest of the actual family unit, those are upstanding Black men that are there for their women and their children. No deadbeat dads. Of course, there'll be one every now and then, but that's not part of that family that I'm writing
Right.
about. That's on somebody else's family or as a result of some upbringing. And in the Parker Brothers series, which is about five adopted Black boys that come to Mama G and Dave's house, the matriarch and the father, just that she couldn't conceive, she couldn't have children. I also wanted to know how do adopted children, really fare as an adult? What
Mm,
happens to their relationships as a result of not getting that solid foundation? So I'll probably explore, and missing persons is another thing that I love too. When Natalie Holloway was missing, every day I'd come home from, I think I was in college at the time, or maybe working and going to college. Be like, did they find her? Did they find her? So I just love missing persons because the ending that I'm gonna write kind of soothes this kind of insolvable problem, right?
mhm,
Like some
mm,
of the things that I feel I'm writing are to put happy endings on things that just don't make any sense. Like you can't
mm,
make sense of them and it hurts. And so, part of the happily ever after is just soothing ourselves from things that we either cannot change, that we see in the news, that are such tragedies. And so that's why I always written about. And family comes together and are there for each other in people's darkest moments and
mm,
darkest times. And just the faith factor is just my dad was a preacher. I have a disability. I was diagnosed at 2 years old, but I've always been optimistic. I've always been faithful, believe God can bless me in spite of my situation. I'm not gonna lie, it gets really hard sometimes. Getting around in a wheelchair is no joke. But, having God and having been instilled those principles early on really made me a difference. And writing always helped me. I was stuck inside during recess because nobody knew what to do with people with disabilities at recess. And so I would escape to books and reading, and that helped me. And I started writing poetry in college, probably before then, but that was also an outlet to um, not only self medicate or soothe myself, but also to just process the inexplicable. Why things happen? Why this? Why that? And so the stories I tell are just another extension of that. Why did bad things happen? Oh, we're gonna overcome them. We're going to be triumphant. And I think to myself, wow, you're really putting this character through a lot. And I'm like, I know, isn't it awful? And it's like, yeah, but you're doing it. I'm like, I know, it's horrible, but you're gonna be okay. Just stick with me. So
right.
yeah, so even if I give my characters adversity, I feel sorry for them, but I know that is life. That is what we all go through, and we're gonna be
Yeah.
okay in it.
And I think the happily ever after factor, oh, that rhymed. Uh, that's one of the things that drew me to romance so much is that I wanted to see positive representation of the Black family, whatever that may
Mhm.
look like, but
Mhm.
that folks can be successful homeowners, voters, on commissions and boards and things like that, the company owner, instead of just being part of the B cast. And
Yeah.
I also don't write urban fiction, and I was really disappointed for a while when I was seeing like what was in the top 100 on Amazon, that it did not
Hmm.
represent my life at
Right.
all.
Right.
Not only
Hmm.
that, but was it seemed to be really harmful to the Black community. And I was
Right.
lamenting this to my critique partner, who is a teacher and a writer, and she said, "Well, in the same way you're looking for representation, so are
Hmm.
folks who are living this life." That this
Right.
might be their Super Bowl moment where they finally get to see their struggle or their dreams and desires are finally getting their moment. And she said, I just want everybody to read. So I was
That's
like,
right.
okay, that's fair. That is fair. And just because I couldn't find what represented my life didn't mean that it wasn't out there. I had to look a little bit more than the top 100 on Amazon. That's not
Hmm.
the be all end all. And I found a bunch of wonderful folks that look like me that write wonderful love stories that you
Yeah.
finish it and you clutch it to your chest and you're like,
Yeah.
that was wonderful. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's so much fun to see, and that's what I'm hoping that will happen when as folks are reading my own stuff. And
It will.
uh,
Yes.
it's like that's what you're looking for. And
Yeah.
so tell me a little bit about with readers. What is the best part for you of
Hmm.
interacting with readers?
Readers are just so amazing. Every now and then they'll put something on my social media. They'll send me an email telling me how much they love my stories. It's few and far between, so dear readers, do more. But it's just great. It's just, and it really encourages you. I mean, that's the thing I think people don't know. When writers say, please write me at such and such and such, they really mean it because writing is such a solitary endeavor. You really are working by yourself, you're working solo. And so, you just, and that's why community in the writing community is such a big deal. But readers are just a special breed. They want their books. And even though it causes a lot of pressure, and you're like, wow, I got to really get this book out. It's still nice to have somebody want something for it from you so bad. So that always makes me feel warm and fuzzy. If one, I don't care if just one person was a fan and they just wrote me every now and then, and that was it. Over 80 billion people in the world. I would take that because that is so encouraging. And the other thing is that you have to stick to your writing. You have to decide at some point that I'm in this no matter what, that nothing will deter me, nothing will discourage me. I write stories for my readers as much as I write for myself because books
Mm.
will flop, you'll get bad reviews, but you have to keep it in. I never thought I would have wrote 20 books. I thought, when I won a writing contest 20 something years ago, I was like, oh, I'll just do a few books. This is fun. And God keeps giving me ideas. I mean, they just keep coming. I have 9 books right now that are all like 40 or 50 pages, some are 100 pages. They're like in the queues. Like, y'all gotta wait y'all turn. I'm not done with these over here. So the ideas just keep coming. There's such abundance. And writing just really helped me with my mental health, my depression. I wrote my first book in college. I was failing my academics, and when I won the writing contest that I entered my novella in, it was just life changing. It was, you were finally validated over something. Somebody read something of yours and said, wow, this is good and this deserves publication. And it was on like popcorn after that, right? That's all it took was someone to look my way and say, wow, this is really good. Come over here, we'll give you a book contract, a book deal in advance. And we don't need that as much as anymore because now I'm self-publishing. But at that time, it came when I really needed it. And then I could kind of say, oh, okay, you think I'm good, and just keep charting your course and keep moving forward.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned such a great thing about becoming an indie writer is that you have more control. You don't have to worry about things like gatekeepers. Um, and I think the self-publishing industry is here to stay, for better or for worse.
Mhm.
I have great admiration for people who are willing to put their dream on paper and out into the world. And it was something that took many, many, many years for me to get up the gumption to do. So I started
Mhm.
writing as a youngster. Did I always write romance? Probably always wrote romance, but I remember being in like middle school where everybody in the class was reading my stuff, even the guys, and they were reading it as fast as I could write it, and they're passing the pages around, and I was like, man, there might be something to this. But my confidence took such a huge hit in thinking that you can't make it as a writer unless you're a bestseller, and getting the truth that that book that's up there on the shelf, that is the product of a process. It is
Mhm.
not, that is not the first draft that the writer did. And I think it's really important to encourage young authors as well as new authors, as I came to it sort of later in life when I decided to be serious about it. I started writing when I was in chemo for breast cancer.
Mhm.
And after having beat cancer, it's like, what else is there to be afraid of? I
Right.
did that. Let's get it out there. And it was a long time before I came out as an author to family and friends. Now, did your family and friends always know that you were a writer, or was it a
No.
delayed? Oh,
No, in fact, my family, at least my immediate family, I knew my grandmother wrote a lot, and I still have some of her. I have a piece of her writing that is pinned together by a safety pin, like that was her stapler, way back when. But you tell your mom, I'm gonna write. I actually didn't tell anybody. First of all, let me be clear. When I was writing the book and I saw the contest, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't know what their reaction would be. I wasn't afraid of their reaction, but I was like, I'm going to keep this to myself only because at that time the contest actually really spoke to me. And I felt like I was going to win. I kind of had like a little out of body experiences where I saw the contest online and I had been crying. And then my tears just magically dried up. And I was like, listen, girl, focus. I felt like God was speaking to me, like, look, this is for you. Do this,
mm,
in remembrance of him is what I was thinking. But it's like, do this and stop that crying. That's what I was thinking. Like your parents tell you, shut that up, So I entered it and I didn't tell anyone until I was getting ready to mail it. And back then it was still they were mailing things. I mailed my manuscript in to BET Books at the time. And I remember telling my mom, and I felt like what was that movie with Eddie Murphy? Where they're all at the dinner table. I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm gonna be a writer. I wrote a book. And she was kind of like, Go ahead, baby. Yeah, do it. That's good. Like having no clue what this even meant. It was the Nutty Professor. That's what I'm thinking of. And
yes.
everybody's like, That's my baby. Go ahead, Hercules, Hercules. And so I just thought like, wow, my mom thinks I'm like she would encourage me to do anything. If I told her that sent off some, I don't know, earwax to the Earwax Foundation or something. Like, oh, that's so good, baby. Go ahead, do it. And you're going to get an award for earwax, It's just like anything dumb. Your mom like thinks you are like super. So I'm very fortunate for that, and I do appreciate that. But my point is that they're not readers, so they didn't really know the magnitude, I think, of what I was doing and that I would still be writing all this long time left. And they didn't really know what do you do to get a book deal? What does that mean? How much prestige? How much you get paid for that? And there's just kind of those general questions. But everybody that they would talk to since it was like, oh, I want to write a book, and your daughter's written a book already. Oh my God! Like it's really they start to see like, wow, this is kind of a prestigious endeavor that they didn't really think about. It wasn't really about lucrativeness or whether it was going to be or wasn't. I'm glad that that never came up because it sometimes it cannot be that much, but just that they encourage me no matter what, and I think that's important, and people should encourage their children, whatever they
Sure.
want to do, because you never know. You don't know what it's gonna turn out to be, and you don't know what it does for their own personal growth and their own personal health and their own desire.
For
Even
sure.
Tyler Perry said that, his mom was mad that he wasted money on a play that didn't pan out the way he wanted because that was her money. But then when she
Mm.
saw him crying, that this really meant something to him, then she was more encouraging. And so I just think, most parents just need to be encouraging from the get-go because they have
Mm.
no idea. They don't have a crystal ball on how it's going to turn. This could be the best thing. Your
Yeah.
child could enjoy this and be happy for the rest of their life. And that is all you really want, regardless of
Right.
funding and money. You know what? You don't want to see them down on their luck, but then they
Right.
get rid of the other job that also brings in some money so they can eat and pay rent. But, my parents have always been encouraging no matter what I did.
And that's just what I'm trying to do with my own two, who are have been young writers since for many, many years. And I remember just how important those words of affirmation from people who love you are. So, I mean, I was writing in secret too, and this was only a couple of years ago. But I think my husband knew something was up because I was filling notebook after notebook. It was pouring out of me. And I finally told him, and it was like almost afraid of the reaction. And
Hmm.
he was like, "That's great. That's
Yeah.
that's
Mhm.
great. Like no matter if it sells one copy or if it sells a billion, it's still great that you did it."
Right.
Uh, so everybody, please encourage your younglings to just explore whatever it is they're interested in, fine arts, visual
Hmm.
arts. Uh, we need that. Us sensitive artist children, we need that encouragement. And one of the things I didn't come out to everybody else as an author for about another year and a half because I wasn't ready. I wasn't at a point emotionally where I could deal with if somebody that was close to me had negative things to say about it. Then after doing some work on myself with therapy, I was able to happily and joyfully share that with my circle. And one of the things my fabulous therapist said to me is that if somebody doesn't like your book, that's one person in billions of readers. And even if somebody in your circle doesn't read your genre, you're still robbing them of a chance to support you.
Right. Right.
So I was like, "Oh, wow, that was pretty
Hmm.
profound." And I was just greeted with so much encouragement. And I know that it's not steamy romance is not for everybody. I get that. But that people can love you and maybe not love what you wrote.
Right.
And
Right.
that's okay.
And they're secretly reading it too, so don't worry about
Probably. Yeah. So
that.
I think my last question was going to be, what do you wish you'd known at the beginning of your career?
Wow. Probably that I had 20 books in. Could I have written a little faster? I mean, that's the only thing that I don't really have any regrets or wish I'd known. Just to strike while hot. I think that
Mm.
sometimes you go through something and you're not really certain. And so I just wish I'd got a clue that this was going to be it and that I would love it so much faster so that I could write a little bit faster, which also can mean more money sometimes, to have the books coming out. And I'm still learning that to this day. I mean, I'm almost about to write an entire book in 1 month because of Nano. And it's like, wow, if you just challenge yourself a little more, could you have written a book in a month or even at least 3 months other times? So I think that, people do a lot, they say a lot, and they want to do a lot, but it's like you could if you just tried a little bit harder. Sometimes we give ourselves too many, pieces of grace, and I want people to give themselves grace about things that they missed the mark or the goals didn't work out as they want. But every now and then you have to be kind of real with yourself and say, wow, could I have did that a little bit better? Could I try a little bit harder? Could I release these 3 books closer together? Because it's the consistency and it's the keep coming out that really helps improve your bottom line too. And it's not all about that, but it certainly will help, things work out a little bit. So just to be a little faster, write a little more, write a little better, learn a little faster, and adopt some of the principles that you gained a little bit more quickly, so that just you can be more successful faster. I mean, that's the bottom line too. But whatever the pace is, still be happy with the pace, but just know going forward, as soon as you learn something, adopt that, use it, be consistent.
I hear you. Okay. Oh, that's wonderful advice. Thank you. And that was all I had as far as questions. Where can folks find information about you?
Yeah, so the platforms I mostly use are Instagram, Facebook, and I use a little LinkedIn just to post certain things, but they can always email me, visit my website at traceegarner.com all together, Tracy with two E's, traceegarner.com, and you can contact me there through my website. But everything that's going on and coming out soon is all listed on that platform.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for supporting my launch. One of the first things that Tracee said when my very tentative, she's never going to write me back email was congratulations. Just something that simple that because I was a nervous wreck
Mhm.
before it came out. And you were just so, you were like, whatever I can do to support. That meant so much to me
Yeah.
as a new author that you forget that even the top selling authors have been in your position where they were getting ready to release their first book. And it was probably nerve wracking for them too. Oh,
Yeah, you never forget that as an author. You never forget that. And I think writers are some of the most humble people. Most of them, of course, the majority are just we're just regular schmegular. We are regular people. You never quite your writing is just such a personal thing. And we're just I think we're just really a group of humble and we share a lot. So we share, I think writers share over a lot of other professions, but we share a lot in anything we can do to help other writers, new writers, veterans, whatever. I will do it. The offer still stands as you continue in subsequent books. So,
thank you.
sure. Thank
And
you for the questions.
so,
Those were great.
oh, okay. So, as I said, I'm going to go have some champagne now that my blood pressure has come down from some technical difficulties in the beginning. So, clearly, I need to revisit what platform I do this on next because it's the second time. So, it might be shame on me with Facebook
It's
trying to
okay.
make it work.
Yeah, we
So,
worked it out though, no matter what.
we did, and thank you so much for
Mhm.
that. And
Welcome.
so, please check out Tracy's books; they are marvelous. And while you're at it, please check me out at nikkidavenport.com. It's Nikki with two Ks. And my debut steamy romance just came out. It's International Incident, and it's available on Amazon. And Tracee, thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you, Dickie. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye bye.